My name is Matt Olson. I work with Bannock County Juvenile Justice in Pocatello, Idaho. And like many other states and local communities, we were impacted by a stay-at-home order that was issued by our governor. We decided that we had better take action and start to problem solve this. And so just to give you a little bit of background about our crossover youth, because what's interesting is the timing of this stay-at-home order was terrible timing. We had just completed our crossover youth training for all of our staff and stakeholders, really kind of disrupted the learning process as well for our staff and how to follow through on these protocols as we work to support these families. So that was one of the challenges that we faced because we're a new model. However, because you spend a significant period of time preparing to develop a crossover youth, there was really strong partnership between all the supervisors and the providers and people who worked to put our model together. And so our ability to troubleshoot, because of those relationships and the trust we'd established over the last year, we were very effective at getting together and troubleshooting. And so, we were able to come up to develop some solutions. And one of the things about our crossover youth, and I'm sure most others are this way, is that we are able to determine for each case who's the lead agency. And so even though we're all partners working with this case, there is one case in each, or one lead agency and worker within each case that really has the responsibility to make sure we're staying on track, coordinating meetings, facilitating meetings, and submitting any paperwork to the court. So for us, the first step, once we determined really what these problems were, was I needed to communicate with my counterpart at Child Protection, Rachel Peace, and really try to understand how they had been impacted by the stay-at-home orders, to see if they were being required to do many of the same things we were, or how they were adapting to them, and then really to affirm our mutual commitment to provide the best service we could to these crossover youth and families with as little disruption as possible. And so by having that communication and that commitment with each other, we were able to move right into the problem-solving mode. We worked with our caseworkers and probation officers to really identify the barriers that we had with these remote meetings, and then to develop the solutions to making sure that we would have good participation from the crossover team as we meet together. So what we did is we were able to really start holding these meetings, and we've had a number of meetings, whether they were a follow-up meeting or whether they're initial meeting where we're doing the assessment review and goal setting and joint case management planning. And it's really, for the most part, been quite successful. And then we also started a weekly staff meeting where we do a conference call, or now we do a Zoom call with all of our staff, and discussing crossover youth practice models, and having each probation or diversion officer who has a case report on that case in our staff meeting, we found to be very beneficial. As I've talked with probation and diversion officers, what they've really liked actually about the process that they found is that there's family members who would normally not be able to participate. Maybe they live out of state or they're traveling. We have one whose father's a truck driver. And we've been able to get really good participation from family members and other people who maybe wouldn't have been able to attend a meeting and therefore wouldn't have been able to participate. And so going forward, as things start to return back to a level of normalcy, really potentially using Zoom or WebEx to remote in other family members from other communities or other states that can't physically be here, we think will be a benefit and a great lesson that we've learned from this whole experience. So. I've been impressed so far that the collaboration has still been very strong in spite of the fact that we're physically separated from one another. They have maintained very good collaboration among the caseworkers as well as the probation officers. And we've had caseworkers from Child Protection that go to the home because they're required and mandated to go to a visit in the home, that will actually call the probation officer from the home and remote them in so that they're actually having that meeting together. Even though it wasn't necessarily a scheduled team meeting, they are finding ways to communicate. And what we found from that is If the caseworker is doing their work independently, by reaching out to a probation officer and having them join in, it actually can cut down on us having to then contact them and follow up with them separately. So doing some of our follow-up, that even though it's not in necessarily a crossover youth team meeting, but doing some of that follow-up jointly through that process has been very beneficial.